right, good evening, everybody. I'll call this August Planning Commission meeting to order. And before we get started, I'll lead you guys in a Pledge of Allegiance. And Mr. Covert, if you don't mind leading us in the invocation. Okay?
Sure.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Father, we just come before you tonight asking for wisdom as we make decisions for the city, that we make the best decision possible, Lord, with your guidance. We ask for prayers for our mayor and staff, Lord, that you would keep them, protect them as they make decisions for the city. We also ask that you be with the men and women of our armed forces, Lord, in the United States of America. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. Again, I'll call our August 2018 Planning Commission meeting to order. First, want to thank Mr. Powell the last 2 months as far as filling in for me in my absence. I do appreciate that. So glad to be back working with you guys on here. If we could do roll call.
Gary Compton.
Here.
Roy Covert.
Here.
Vivi Haney.
Here.
Shannon Mueller.
Here.
Peyton Parker. Here. Kevin Parsley.
Here.
Aaron Panado.
Here.
Brian Powell.
Here.
Dale Tyler.
Here.
Any questions on the minutes previous month? Comments?
Move to be approved as written.
Motion by Mr. Powell. Second by Mrs. Haney. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next section, tabled items that we had, B 18-13, Professional Cabling Incorporated, 2370 Ford Avenue, variance to allow gravel parking to the north of the warehouse, presented by Bates and Associates.
I'm Jeff Bates with Bates and Associates. We were here last month, but I believe the computer and stuff wasn't working, and y'all couldn't see the display. And due to heavy equipment and tracked vehicles, they would tear up any asphalt or pavement, so they're asking for gravel in the rear of the building.
Any staff comments?
Okay, so what you're proposing is one of the questions that was raised last time about equipment that's not heavy equipment, like pickup trucks and smaller trucks. You've created a paved parking area for those, correct?
Yes, out front, in front of the fence we did.
And I can show you on this one. I can reach this one. That's what these spaces right here are for.
Correct.
They're
Yes, ma'am.
inside the fence.
Yes.
But yet they'll be paved for those two.
Yes,
buildings.
ma'am.
Okay. So that question was addressed. So what you're anticipating is all the rest of that would be gravel, because you'll be moving heavy equipment and track equipment in the rest of that area. That's basically the change that we write. Now, what you're showing is the one on the other side has gravel. Is that what you're showing on that drawing? Drawing is more than just your site.
Yeah.
It's a little bit confusing. It's like, guys, you're gonna gravel everything, but you're telling us.
We did sprinkle the building though. That did allow us to get away from the hammerhead that was in there. So we went ahead and sprinkled it, and that did away with that, so.
Okay, and the trash dumpster will still be in that location, but it will be accessed with a gravel down to that area too. You're not doing anything extra for the trash truck, right? Okay. So that's their proposal.
Any questions or comments from the audience? It's to the commission.
So no, the only vehicles that will be parked there will be their tracked vehicle.
And the heavy equipment it takes to move, they have large spools of cable and stuff that are very heavy. They bring in on heavy equipment. It'll be that kind of stuff that's in the back.
And that's okay under our ordinance to do that?
That's what they're asking of variance to allow that to happen, yes. That's what they're asking for.
This will be a call for the vote.
Call for the vote.
Call for vote by Mr. Powell.
Compton.
Yes.
Covert.
Yes.
Haney.
Yes.
Mueller.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Parsley.
Yes.
Panado.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Tyler.
Yes.
Variance passes 9-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next tabled item, W 18-19, Deborah Scott, 4568 West Seaton. Waiver of sidewalk requirement presented by Deborah Scott.
Yes, as you can see in the picture, and I did submit some pictures by email of driving down the street. There are no sidewalks on either side of the road from 4800 to 4500 on that entire stretch of road. It's an older area where they split off. In the picture, you can see my property outlined. The piece of property to the west was joined together. They split it, and I'm wanting to build my home there on that piece of property.
Staff comments?
Well, staff doesn't recommend waivers of sidewalks where it can be built. I mean, there's nothing physically out there that would keep it from happening.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the audience? To the commission?
I've been out there several times, and of course, that's a dead end, as you can tell with I-49 there. I know we got commercial land to the north. A lot of areas is being zoned commercial out there, so don't know what part of this area is going to go, if it's going to go commercial anytime soon, or what they want to do with it. But I don't recommend to have a sidewalk here.
Any
So,
questions?
yeah, my feeling on that is that we've tried this before, and eventually start looking that sidewalks could have been built. And we're trying to promote walkability in the community, and so we're subsidizing, because if at some point sidewalks go in, now it's going to become the rest of the citizens subsidizing the sidewalk for this homeowner. So if they choose not to put one in, if they want to do, isn't there a bond they can do?
They can make payment in lieu of
Payment
improvements.
in lieu of?
They can make payment in lieu of improvements. That would be just the cost, and it would be deposited with the city. And if a project is developed and the sidewalks put in, that money would be transferred to that
Right.
project.
And, you know, and that way, be fair to the rest of the citizens.
I do
Remind
like-
you, this is a recommendation to council.
I do like the payment in lieu option, but, you know, you look at our master road plan, and you look at what's going to be happening in this area, and I'm not sure that the city would even be in that expansion.
It'll probably be a parking lot.
To be expanding a dead-end road next to I-49, so.
So you're asking if
That's,
that would
I
be
mean,
an
that-
option?
That would be my recommendation.
Okay.
I mean, we've had things further out with the same thing, and then all of a sudden, a year or two,
That means the oak tree in the front yard will have to be taken down, because that's where the sidewalk will have to go.
well, you can do payment in lieu of, and then that would hold that so that for now, you wouldn't have to actually do the sidewalk. But if they come in to do it, you've paid your portion.
Well, no.
No.
Payment in lieu of means they pay up front. And
Okay.
she would pay it, it would be deposited into the city's account. A bill of assurance would be a lien that was put on the
Right,
property.
but
that
she's
if-
concerned about the oak tree.
Right,
So if
right.
she doesn't want to take the oak tree out.
Right.
Then she could do payment in lieu of and leave the oak tree, and then watch and see.
Or she could do a bill of assurance that when and if the city comes up with a project, they would be responsible to pay whatever the cost is at that time. Those are the two options.
Well,
This one is a recommendation.
Yeah, she has 3 on there. I mean, we could stick with the waiver, I mean, and you have us vote on that whole piece, or the other 2 options that were presented as far as payment in lieu of, which would be money up front on that one, or a bill of assurance, which then would be a lien
Which-
against the property.
yeah.
So,
I
but
mean,
on
that-
either of those other 2, you wouldn't necessarily have to do anything as far as a sidewalk right now. So your oak tree would still stay there.
And if they never, if you do bill of assurance and they never put a sidewalk in, not out anything.
Okay.
Do we know, Patsy, if anybody else on this road has done bill of assurance or anything like that at this time?
I don't know that we haven't had anything else come up on this road yet. It hasn't. We've had rezonings,
And do we know if the
Rezone
city
the
has
property.
plans for anything for that street in the foreseeable future?
Well, the city doesn't have any plans for it.
What have the rezonings been?
The rezonings have been the properties that are closer to 48th Street to be rezoned to commercial. And then there was a lot split to allow another house.
That
to be
was my
built.
lot.
Yeah, so that she could build another single-family house there too.
So those are options. I mean, we can continue with what you've come before us as far as the waiver, and we can vote on that. And this would be a recommendation. It would still have to go to city council for approval on there as well. Or you have the other two options, which we could change that as far as doing those other options.
Well, it's an older neighborhood that's not had, the reason there hasn't been a lot of work done down there is because there are long-term people that have lived there a long time. So they did try rezone some of them commercial on the end of the street, the 4500 area, but they didn't sell. So I don't see the purpose in doing sidewalk when it's probably going to eventually, you know, maybe 5-10 years from now, all be commercial parking lots. So,
Okay, so we can go forward with this right here if you're good with it.
okay.
Okay? So this be a recommendation?
Recommendation?
Okay, recommendation by Mr. Covert,
Second.
second by Mrs. Haney.
And that's to waive it.
Waiver, that's correct.
Covert?
This, what I'm recommending is the waiver, that's correct.
Oh, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Haney?
No.
Mueller?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Parsley?
Yes.
Panado?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Compton?
Yes. Waiver of sidewalk requirement passes 8-1.
Staff will prepare the resolution. It goes to council on the 28th.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next section is conditional use. First item, C 18-18, Mallows LLC, 205 East Johnson, Use Unit 44, Mobile Vending in a downtown form-based code neighborhood center type 1 district, presented by Chelsea Mallow.
Hi. Chelsea Mallow.
Robert Mallow.
You want to tell us what you want to do?
It is a wood fire brick oven pizza. It's actually, you can see it, it's right over there.
Am I speaking
Yeah,
to
can you lift that mic up a little bit?
Yeah, sorry, I'm sorry. It's a wood fire brick oven pizza. It's actually right across the parking lot there. You guys could see it. It's going to be in the new Bike Rack Brewery area. Going to be their main food truck. And so we'll serve brick oven pizzas, sandwiches, pastas, salads, that sort of thing. And so we'll do all the lunch around here and dinner and that sort of thing, and maybe a brunch on Sunday. We're still kind of seeing if that's something we want to do, but just that sort of thing.
Staff comments?
The ingress and egress to the property is acceptable. The off-street parking and loading areas is acceptable. Refuge and service areas are acceptable. Utilities are available. They're not required to do any screening. The signage will only be on the truck itself, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The yard requirements are acceptable. The overall project is acceptable. It addresses the vision set forth in the adopted comprehensive our downtown Springdale master plan and the form-based code by capitalizing on public investment in existing infrastructure. It's recommended that the following conditions be established. Ensure a complementary relationship with surrounding neighborhoods. May not operate between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. If the health certificate is required, display the health certificate in a manner visible to customers. No obstruction of pedestrians or motor vehicle traffic flow. No obstruction of traffic signals or regulatory signs. No vending upon a public way. No sound device that produces a loud and raucous noise in violation of city ordinance or violate any other city ordinances in connection with the vending operation. And the site is to remain clean and free of paper or refuse of any kind generated from the operation of the business, with all trash or debris accumulating within 20 feet of any vending stand to be collected and deposited into trash containers.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that it?
That's it.
All right. Any questions or comments from the audience? Let's do the commission.
Call for the vote?
Call for vote by Mrs. Haney.
Haney,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley,
Yes.
Panato,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert.
Yes. Conditional use passes 9-0.
Staff will prepare the resolution. It goes to council on the 28th.
Okay, thank you very much.
My apology for not announcing this at the beginning. C 18-19, Karina Chavez, 1108 South West End Street. That has been tabled per staff on there. Next item, C 18-20, Trinity Multifamily, 580 East Randall Wabi Lane, tandem lot split, presented by Blue and Associates.
My name's Heath Myers. I'm with Blue and Associates, and I'll be representing this project.
Okay, I have a couple of questions to start with. The conditional use request is by the applicant of Blue and Associates in Trinity Multifamily. Is this a different organization than the apartment complex owners of the property?
They, I believe, just purchased the property. I know
Well, I
we
pulled the
did.
record today, and it still says and Mark Wabi Lane Apartments LLC. Has it
Okay.
closed yet?
I think it closed this week, or is closing this week, actually. Is my understanding.
Okay. Do we have anything who indicates who can sign for Trinity Multifamily? Okay. I don't think so either. I didn't see anything. So we're not really sure, because the application came in as Blue and Associates and Trinity Multifamily. It says in here that the purpose of this is to develop the property for multifamily use on the north end that's not already developed for multifamily. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
So why are we creating two lots?
I think the north half is gonna be sold off in the future for development.
So we are anticipating that any multifamily development on that lot by itself can meet all the multifamily design standards by themselves,
On the northern lot,
with an access easement through the existing multifamily apartment complex to get to it, correct?
yes.
Okay. How many units do you think you can get on there?
That's ahead of, I can't answer that question. I don't know that information.
Okay,
It's
that's,
essentially, that's a little premature. Basically, we reached out to by our client. They wanted to do a lot split, or a tandem lot split, obviously, as I showed them. It's more for future, I think it's more for sales, and so they can present it and sell it to somebody, because there is already all the utilities and easements typically that there would need to be.
okay, you
to
say that all the utilities are there. Do you know that there's enough sewer capacity to put more units in that location? Because there has been some sewer capacity issues in this area of town. Have y'all checked the capacity to see how many units could be put out there?
No, I've not done that.
Okay, and I ask these questions because I think we're a little bit premature in asking the planning commission to approve a conditional use for a tandem lot when we don't know that it can be done, what you want to do with it.
Well, and to be fair, the exact intent is, I'm not exactly sure what that is because of the different parties involved in this. There's
Well, it's
several
not-
parties involved. The only thing that we could imagine that is going to want to be done is they're going to want to put some more multifamily units up there.
Well, we've had this issue before, and there was always these concerns about the density that we're putting in there. The existing project doesn't meet the current multifamily design standards in that it doesn't have a lot of open space. And they're in there pretty tight, and we're going to be adding more units, and on a separate lot, it appears that we'd be creating a separate lot so that the existing could stay just like it is without open space, and then we would be looking at the second. So my recommendation at this time is not to approve a conditional use for a tandem lot split until we have a little bit more information about what they intend to do with it. There's several questions out there that need to be answered before we start allowing an access through an existing, and I don't know, the fire department may have some concerns about that access to more units because they won't have a second access point to this. I mean, there's several issues that come to mind just on the very front end.
Yeah.
So my recommendation to the commission is that we table this till we get some more information. And right now, I'm not sure we even have the record owner because it was listed as Randall Welby.
It's Welby Lane or Welby LLC, I think.
Yeah, we're not exactly sure who Trinity Multifamily is to start with.
Well, at the time of the application, you have the signature of the record owner. You should.
Well, do you have something to document who that signature is and they have authorization to sign? Because if you look at the application, when you look at the signature for a record of the property owner, you can't even read what the name is. I don't have anything that documents who that person is.
Yeah, I understand that.
The warranty deed says that it belongs to Welby Lane LLC is the one that you submitted.
Mm-hmm.
So is this person who signed representing them?
Yes.
Okay, I have no way of knowing that. So I
I mean,
think we have several
yeah.
things here.
I agree with you as far as it probably needs to be tabled on here. I mean, there's the intent as far as wanting to do multifamily, but I mean, there just seems to be a lack of details that would really, I mean, would it even work?
Yeah,
That
I
would
totally
just-
understand. You know, we never received any feedback until now on this project, so there's nothing I could, get ahead of this meeting because I never received anything.
It's fine. Well, if you're okay with it, we're gonna table this, and, you can work with your client and then work with the planning department a bit more. And if we wanna, bring this back as far as September,
So-
great, but there needs to be more details associated with this.
So as far as details, you need us to do capacity studies on the sewer and see
Well,
what kind of.
I think if you're asking us to split it to a tandem lot for the purpose of building multifamily units, which is what you say you're going to do, we need to know that it can be done.
Okay.
I mean, we could split it off and put the condition on it that's only, the single family only. I guess, is that a condition you would want to be placed on it? Conditional uses can be made with conditions of what makes it work.
Mm-hmm.
Access is an issue. The fire
Yes.
department is going to be very concerned about adding several more units when we don't have 2 access points.
Okay.
And I don't know that there's sewer capacity. I think that's something, those 2 things for sure needs to be addressed.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. We can table it. I'm totally fine with that.
Okay, so we'll table this and potentially that it will be on the September agenda. Okay? Thank you. Next item, C 18-21. Forgive me if I pronounce the name wrong. Jairo Delgado, north of intersection of Powell and East 412 East. Use Unit 44, mobile vending in C2, presented by Jairo Delgado.
Hi, it's close enough, Jairo Delgado.
I don't know.
Yes. So what I'm wanting to do and get permission is to convert that spot into a food cart stop, refreshment place for the people that are on the Razorback Trail, since it's right on the Greenway. That's the vision, to have, me personally, myself, I like taking the trail, and I like having the opportunity of somewhere to take a break, get some shade, and continue my route down the road.
Staff comments?
Okay, right now, the only possibility we have for that is to give approval for a use unit 44, which is a mobile vending, to allow 1 food truck to go on that location at the time.
Okay.
We are in the process of developing, and I will have to you in the next few days, a proposed change to the ordinance to allow us to create food truck courts. What they're gonna look like, how many can be in that location, how they need to be put together, what kind of paving and parking requirements are that. This would allow him to get started with his first food truck there, understanding that he has to have a paved location for the truck to sit on, and he has to have paved location for people to park on that. And we've already talked about those kind of things, and so he'll come forward with this, but this is a way to get it started with 1 food truck to start with. So the recommendations that you're gonna hear is based on 1 mobile vending unit at this location, and we would address multiple food court as we get forward with the rest of the regulations. The ingress and egress to the property is acceptable. The off-street parking will be made acceptable. Refuge and service areas will be acceptable. The utilities are on the site, and they'll have to be extended to the location of where he wants to put his truck. You're also proposing a gazebo with this, or are you gonna wait and do that after we get the rest of it?
Probably wait.
Okay, that's what I thought that's the last thing you and I talked about.
Yes.
Okay. The signage, there will be no additional signage except what's on the truck itself. The yard requirements are acceptable, the size and shape of the site is acceptable. There is no requirements for proposed landscaping. The request is recommended for approval with the following conditions. May not operate between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. The health certificate is required. Display the health certificate in a manner visible to customers. No obstruction of pedestrian or motor vehicle traffic flow. No obstruction of traffic signals or regulatory signs. No vending upon a public way. No sound device that produces a loud and raucous noise in violation of city ordinance or violate any other ordinances in connection with a vending operation. Site to remain clean and free of paper or refuse of any kind generated from the operation of the business, with all trash or debris accumulating within 20 feet of any vending stand to be collected and deposited into trash containers, limited to one truck with paved access and paved parking for it.
Okay.
So if we move forward with this, what you said that we'll have in front of us as far as dealing with multiple food trucks
Right.
coming up in the next work session.
Yes.
And I suspect that that's something that you would want within the next month or two, as far as depending on how that kind of shapes
Yes,
out.
yes.
Um,
And what we would
how
do-
would that impact this in the
Well,
future?
he's only getting the conditional use for one food truck at this location. If
Okay.
he wants to go to the next step, he'll have to meet all the requirements that we put in a food truck.
But
right
he'll have to
now.
come back here again
Yes.
for,
Yes.
for multiple.
Depending on whether we set it as a permitted use in a C2 zone, or if we set it as a conditional use in a C2 zone, that will be determined how he moves forward with it. If it is a permitted use, he'd have to do a large-scale development or a non-large scale for it. If it is a conditional use, he'll be back amending his conditional use to add other sites. And we've had all these conversations. We've been talking about this for quite some time, and he's putting together a pretty good plan, but he needs to get started, and he wants to start with one mobile vending truck. Okay?
Okay. Any questions or comments in the audience? If you'll come up to the mic and state your name and address, please.
Good afternoon, I'm Brian Lanning. I have the car dealership to the south of the proposed property, and I guess I have a question as to parking for that facility, because there is no street parking on Powell Street.
Right. He will have to create paved parking on site, and he already knows that.
Okay, my concern is the property is really not a very big property, and that's going to take up just about the whole property. So what about bathroom facilities?
If he is allowed to expand to a food court, and we set those standards for those, he'll have to address those. Right now, it's only one truck at that location. One truck is not required to have a bathroom facility itself.
Okay. Well, my concern, as you can see, is that I'm the nearest business, and somebody has lunch and then they drink something, they want to go to the bathroom, they're going to come to my property, and I would like to avoid that if that's possible. Or, as you can see from the property, I have, parking on my property. I'd like to avoid that also. So,
Well, they wouldn't be authorized to park on your property.
I know that, but I don't want to be out there chasing them away either. That doesn't make me look good in the community. I want to have a good image, but I don't want to be chasing people off my property. So, I'm not necessarily opposed to the use for the property. I'm just concerned about if there's adequate parking for the people who are going to use that food truck, because it's not going to be just people on bikes. And I think that's great that there's something for the bike trail, but I think other people will be using that food truck also.
Thank you. Brian, did you have a question?
Oh, I'll just let the audience go first.
Now, you all received several emails in support of and we can include all those in the minutes themselves, and we'll read them all if you want to, but if you all want to just stipulate, we'll put all those comments in the.
We'll stipulate that, yeah. Any other questions or comments from the audience? Okay, it's to the commission.
So, access that, he'll have to get a permit to curb cut.
I think
Come across the
there's
trail.
already a curb cut there that was built with the improvements
I
with the
don't think
trail?
there is
There's
on,
not?
on
Okay.
that piece, but I mean, yes, we will have to have an access point into there.
Yeah, they'll have to go to Public Works to get a driveway access.
And that'll just be one entrance and exit in that one? Okay.
Not wide enough to have more than one.
Yeah, I mean, it's very busy as far as having to go across a bike trail and onto the road and that whole piece on there. So, I mean, you have to really be paying attention to avoid any type of accident on it, so, okay.
Yeah, I was concerned. I pulled in there today and looking over the property, and when I was pulling out, I had to really make myself stop because there was a bicycle come flying right in front of me. Is there something that we can signs up to make people caution that there is a bike trail right there?
I would assuming that you would make those kind of notations or put up signs because he wants to attract the bikers in there as
Right.
well, and so you
Sure.
have to kind of protect those as well. We haven't really talked about what signage would be required yet, as
I
far as that's
understand,
concerned.
but I'm just, for now, don't put something up there, there's a great chance that you would run over somebody running through there.
There's a lot of people on the trail through there.
Absolutely.
So you were talking about the paved area, paved for his mobile vending area, and for the parking. So what are you looking at as far as paving that area? Is it from side of the lot to the other side of the lot? How, the depth? How much parking?
Right, I mean, our concepts right now are basically coming off the road, and we've got 6 spaces set up that'll be paved near the trail, and then the individual spaces would be paved for the trucks themselves. So we wouldn't have paving running through the site. So we'd have kind of a little seating court in the middle with, so we'd have like a truck court wrapped around the seating area and then parking near the road is kind of the concept at this time.
They'll submit that, we'll approve all that before they can get their business license to operate at that location.
Okay.
Well, how many parking spots do they have to have for
They only
each?
have to have 3 spaces for the truck. I mean, that's what the ordinance requires now, is only 3 spaces.
But I can see it's a vision of more of a court instead of just one truck. And so we need to think proactively on that.
And when you see the draft changes for a food court, you'll see that we address the number of spaces and how much has to be paved and that kind of stuff. So we need to talk about that. And this is not the only location that people are talking about food truck courts. There's at least 2 more being discussed in other areas of the city as well. So we're going to have to address that.
But Jason, is the max going to be 6 parking spaces, or?
No, that's just kind of what we have drawn up right now. We will have the ability to add more spaces to that. So in the beginning, there'll be a larger green space in the center, and if we need more space, then we'll just push into that green space.
So tell me more about this particular location. Why this location?
So I saw this spot. I live in Springdale.
Yeah, I get as far as
Yeah.
being next to the bike trail.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of locations that are by the bike trail on that
Yes, this is the only one I saw that was leveled already, no development on it. The other reason why I do have future in growing it a little bit more, the lot right next to it, I think it's 1903, it says on there. I waited this long because I did try to purchase that lot. The only way you could do it was in auction. I did lose on that day on auction, but now I'm working with the realtor to make an offer on that lot. Also, I've tried to reach that house that's in the corner of Huckleberry and Powell Street to also convert that into indoor seating and used for public restrooms. So this is one step of 3.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Be a call for the vote?
Call for the vote.
Call for vote by Mrs. Haney.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Recuse. Recuse.
sorry. Parsley,
No.
Donato,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
Haney.
Yes.
7 yes, 1 recuse, and 1 no on it.
Staff will prepare the resolution. It goes to council on the 28th, I'm sorry. on the 28th.
Thank you. Next section, preliminary plats, replats, and final plats. Preliminary plat 18-06, Hilton Roads subdivision, east side of Hilton Roads, north of Howard Anderson Roads, presented by ESI.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason Apple with ESI. We're proposing a single-family subdivision just south of Grand Valley, off of Hilton and Butterfield Coach Roads in Springdale. And I'll answer any questions.
Staff comments?
Street names will need to be provided and approved prior to final plat acceptance. The name of an existing private road will have to be changed and may require a public meeting. How will the areas not captured in lots along with the detention pond be managed? The POA, fee simple exchange. There is a small area at the entrance to the subdivision on the west side. Dedication of right-of-way with the final plat will be required. All comments from utility companies and other city departments must be addressed prior to approval of construction plans. You have to meet the stormwater requirements as outlined in the drainage criteria manual. An easement shall be provided in plans for detention facilities. Minimum 20-foot wide drainage easement shall be provided around the 100-year flood pool, connecting the tributary pipes in the discharge system along the most possible routing of piping systems. Ownership of the detention facility will remain with the land. That's a topic we've really got to discuss and figure out how we're gonna move forward with that one. Has to have a SWIP, as you're well aware. As a subdivision itself, you will need to submit the final contours for the grading plan. Streetlights are required. You have the minimum lumens that is required. You need to show the type of lights and where they're going to be spaced. The engineer states that a portion of the project is within the floodplain. This is not supported by the flood panel. Either change the note or show where the work is being completed in the floodplain. If work is being completed in the floodplain, submit a permit application.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments from the audience? If you'll come up to the mic, state your name and address, please.
Do we have anybody from engineering?
I'm Jimmy Bowen, and I got property, the way I'm looking at this plat here, I think is up there, is that the south side of it? You got one here. This right here. Is that the way it's laying? North is that way? Yes, sir. Okay, let me turn it back around this way then. Okay. This is Hilton Road down here.
Here's Hilton.
Okay. I got property from Hilton Road, quarter of a mile up through there. Then you've got, I don't know how many lots up through there, but all the water right now, my problem is drainage. I mean, we've got, I want to know how you're going to get rid of the water that's coming to this property, not what's on it that's going to get on it, but what's coming to this property right now. There's 80 acres or more that all comes down to me, crosses me, goes on across this property. Years ago when Terminelli bought all this, they put a silk fence up. I had to make them tear the silk fence down just so the water could drain. So I know north of this, they built all these lots up. Well, there's a ditch back here on the north side of this property that you can bury a car in just to get rid of the water. So my concern is when you put this in here and you start building these lots up, all that water's gonna back up on me. So it's got to go somewhere. I don't know if they've got plans to.
Jason, did you want to comment on that?
I'd like to see how that waters are going somewhere or what it's gonna do.
So we have currently like a double run of storm pipe that runs through our subdivision in that area that he's discussing. So basically what we're gonna do is, like what is on our north property line, there's a ditch that carries water to a set of storm pipes that run north. We're basically gonna continue that network south, create that swale situation on our south line and pick that water up and carry it north.
So you're telling me then you're gonna put a ditch all the way down my fence line?
It'll be on our property, yes,
I
sir.
understand,
Yes.
but I mean, it's gonna be, there'll be a ditch on the north side of my property.
Potentially, yes. Yes.
All the way down through there.
Yes.
Okay. I have no problem with that.
Yes, sir.
So I believe my house is here.
Yeah, you need to talk into the mic and state your name, please.
I'm Scott Stillwell. I live at 4590 Hilton.
Okay.
So my property is here. So we're doing a POA entrance here, right? Or a HOA entrance? Here.
There'll be a public entrance.
Right. Are we paving this?
Our portion.
Which portion is that?
This
Just,
portion here.
okay, what's gonna stop cars from going 5,000 miles an hour down through here?
You ain't got none.
Nothing. That's a big safety concern for me, because it happens now, ever since we put that parking on Hilton. It's a big concern. I got kids. He's got a grandson. Right now, cars go 50 miles an hour. We put a dead end sign up. He's got a sign up that says
I've
private
got
property.
drive, cause I own both sides of the road. You can go back as far as you want to. That road, Hilton Road, was a private drive. Years ago, it was a private drive until Terminelli bought it and started annexing it into the city. Well, from my property, all the way across my property is private drive. I mean, there is no right of way for a road. So I put a sign up there, but I have fixed fence on the south side of it because idiots run through the fence. I mean, they come down through there and they can't stop.
So Jason, if that is a private drive, where do you access Hilton Road?
His road,
Go to the next sheet. I don't know if we can go to the next sheet, but it's on 2 sheets. There you go.
Hilton Road is that piece over there on the
The far east side, yes.
on the east side, and you're coming off of that piece to go into the subdivision itself.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah, it runs through and it connects to Butterfield on the other side.
Okay.
So there's gonna be a portion of, it's paved here. There'll be 100 yards of dirt and then back to paved.
it'll be 330 feet.
330 feet. So is there any way we could do, pave this and curb and gutter that to make sure we have good flow? Because it's gonna just trap, and all this water off this it could potentially just flood us out.
You know, I mean, you're gonna get, that's our worst problem is water. There's lots of water.
I'm not opposed to subdivision. I think it's great. I hope it helps my property value, but I just want to make sure that I don't float away.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing.
Carl,
So I wish we knew. And what size? I don't know what step you're in. Is there a property owner association for a minimum square footage in these houses, or what's going to go in here? What builder is in here? Do you know?
Well, now, we're not gonna get into
that's fine,
discussion
that's okay.
about
That's
what
fine.
builders are going into. We're talking about whether or not they meet the minimum standards
Okay.
for our zoning classification and for the subdivision regulations.
Okay.
We're not gonna get into that discussion. We do have a member of the engineering staff, I believe, back there somewhere, you're right, that can address any concerns as to how they meet the city's, drainage criteria manual. If you
That's my
want
biggest
all those
concern.
on
Yeah.
And if
Water's
there,
the biggest thing.
and there's a monthly traffic committee meeting, so if speeding or if you think that there might need to be some signs, there's a committee that meets every month to look at citizens proposing, I just went through it over by my house, for an issue that we had with trucks turning on it. So if you can, get on the agenda and talk to them about the speeding hazard and see if there's something they can do.
Okay. Not a word.
And as far as I understand from the engineering department, what they are proposing meets the city's drainage criteria manual. Carl, am I correct? I know you're back there. Okay, okay.
Hi, I'm Priscilla Duncan. I live on Stonehenge in Grand Valley Meadows. We're back to this development. I understand that you didn't want to discuss the drainage, and I just wanted to ask one question regarding that. There is a 65-foot easement behind the properties on Stonehenge. What is happening with that easement? Is it going to be in backyards? Where is it going to be?
The majority of the easements in our detention pond area that we're showing, and then there will be a portion of it that's in the backyards of, I think, two to three lots there.
The backyards of the houses that's in this
The
subdivision.
the backyards of the houses are going to include that easement?
Yes.
I'm 61, there's a neighbor here that's 59, I believe. So so their property lines are gonna butt right against
Correct,
ours?
yes.
They are?
Yeah.
because this is a definite drainage
It's a
area
drainage easement,
through
but
here.
yes, but the
No, but
property
it
does-
is a definite drainage
Correct.
area. We were flooded in the back part of our property when we purchased the home in April, when we moved in April, and had to do a lot of fill in there. There's a drainage thing here at the end of Hamlet Street. What are you
Jason,
doing with
Are
that?
you using drainage easements that's in that subdivision to add to what drainage easements you're adding in this subdivision?
Well, of
Or is
course.
all of it gonna be,
This is all wooded area and
So there was a provision with the Grand Valley plat that has a set of 2 storm boxes that run north on Hamlin, basically catching all that area where she's discussing. So if you see our area where our 2 ponds are, where we're connecting to Hamlet, we're collecting that water there, and we're gonna continue that network north.
and all of that easement is actually on your side?
Yes.
Okay. Is this plat available upstairs to the
Yes.
public? It is,
Yes, it is.
at this point? Okay. How many homes, we can't see that out in the audience, so how many homes are in that? How many lots?
96 buildable lots.
So it's as big as Grand Valley Meadows then? Okay. And you are the developer?
Engineer.
Engineer, okay. Do we know who the developer is at this point?
Tell us who the developer is?
Can we be told?
Well, it has a developer's name on the subdivision itself.
Doesn't, I don't know.
We're not talking about who the actual builders of the house are, we're talking about who the developer of the subdivision is.
I think it's an LLC, I don't know.
What
the name of
LLC
the
is it?
LLC.
I'm sorry?
It's not on here.
First Asset Holdings.
First Asset Holdings LLC?
I think that's the current owner.
Do you know yet at this point if the homes will be conforming to what's in Grand Valley Meadows?
We have not seen a set of covenants of what they will be asking for in that location. What we're looking at right now is minimum lot sizes and how the streets are laid out and how the drainage is taken care of, how the street lights are put in.
What are the minimum lot sizes?
This is zoned SF2, which is a 70-foot of frontage. Each lot has to be at least 8,000 square feet.
Okay.
Which
Thank
I
you.
think is pretty close to the same size lots.
We have 11,000.
Are that, and
You would too.
Yeah.
They're 80 by 140 on average. Some
Okay.
are bigger,
Okay.
so this is going smaller.
And so this is the first, they'll still have a final
Okay.
plat and
Well, they will submit, if the preliminary plat is approved tonight, they will submit a set of construction plans that will have to be approved before they can start doing any work. Once that construction plan is approved, they can start construction. When 90% of the water and sewer facilities are in and 80% of the street is in and the drainage system is in place to function on its own, they can come back with the final plat to allow them to be approved so they can transfer lots and sell lots. Yeah.
okay. Just want to make sure people understood the process in that as well, so, okay. Any other questions or comments?
Remember, our review of this is do they meet the minimum standards?
It's to the commission.
Call for the vote.
I have a question real quick.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's all right. I noticed that Bowen Drive is a gravel path, and there's a residence that it leads to. Is it going to be improved all the way to that residence?
I'm sorry, where are you?
It's on Bowen Drive. It's
It's the existing
the
private street that's
The
there,
entrance
right?
from Butterfield Coach. Yeah, no, yeah, it's the entry from Butterfield Coach.
So the only street improvements is they would have as far as on Butterfield Coach and Hilton, right?
Right, and they have to build the streets that go through the subdivision as it's laid
Right.
out here, yes. The name of the existing private drive, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, yeah, Bowen
Okay,
Drive, yeah.
and does that become part of the layout of the subdivision itself?
I think it's in a slightly different location, but yes, it would basically replace that street or
And
that
it'll be-
lane
Be built to city standards?
as a city street, yes.
Yes, okay.
So that's a hammerhead. I'm assuming our fire department's good with that.
This actually has connection to Butterfield Coach and to Hilton, so it's a street that goes all the way through. So they wouldn't necessarily have to have. Right, they've got one right there, yes, they have one right there, yes.
Any other questions? If you can come to the mic and state your name and address, please.
Well, my name is Cayetano Garcia, and I live in Butterfield, Coach. And my question is, since it's going to be a new subdivision right there, I don't have the map with me. It's going to be this one, right? So that's
Here's the Butterfield Coach.
That's Butterfield, Coach. Which one is Bowen Drive?
It's in here.
Is in here. So this one is going to continue all the way down. There's a.
It'll turn this way.
Well, explain a little bit. This is going to be, what is this?
This
Gonna
is a
be
dead end here.
That's the dead end. What is Butterfield, Bowen Drive end right now? What is?
Where does it end?
Yeah, right now.
I'm not sure.
You're not sure? Well, my question is, showing on the present map, pretty much the street end of my property. So my question is, if you guys ended pretty much the street right there, it's gonna cut me the entrance to my property. I just wanna have pretty much like a driveway entry, and I have 5 acres right there. So
your question is, what's the future of that?
what's the
dead
future
end?
of that one right there? Because
Is that how you access your property
yes,
today?
that's what. Yeah.
And that was my initial question, because I noticed that drive leads to that house, and then you said that there was a dead end. I was wondering how, that family will access their home from that road, from the
They have an
Bowen Drive.
access easement across that to get to that piece of property? You have an access easement on the adjacent property to get across?
Well, yes, I do. But like I said, if the street is gonna stop right there, I just gonna have 15 feet or so just to get in my property, to get into 5 acres right there. If it is, I was, if it's that possible, you have to extend probably 200 feet, so that way I can make an entry to my barn, something.
We'll see if we can find that access agreement, and if there's an agreement through there, then we'll provide access through there.
Do you have a copy of the access agreement that you have that allows you to do that?
I don't have nothing with me.
Okay, well, we need to research, Jason, and see what we can find. And then we need to get back with you and let you know what we find.
Sure.
Okay?
Sure. Thank you.
Would you make sure we get your contact information before you leave?
Sure.
Any other questions or comments from the commission?
Well, with all the underground storm drain, there's a lot of water out there.
There's
And
a lot of water out
There's a lot
there.
of underground storm drain if you look on this, and they've got it filtering out, and looks like it's gonna go down out towards Hilton, majority of it.
And our new storm drainage requirements as far as the buildup of the lots, really, how does that impact things?
I can't answer that for you. Carl would have to address how
We either have to build the lot up to get drain to the street or provide a drainage easement in the rear of that lot for access through, so, and we're providing detention for, our impacts.
Okay. That just always seems to be a concern. For the most part, we address those, but, every single lot has to be addressed and not create an issue for any of those on it, so. Okay. I think we had a call for the vote by Mr. Coe. Yes, sir. Yeah.
I don't know if they've even done this or not, but
Yeah, if you can state your name again, just so we have it.
Jimmy
for-
Bowen.
Okay.
All that water is gonna come, it's gonna flood him out. If you go to Hilton Road with it, it's gonna flood it out.
It's not going to Hilton.
Huh?
It's not going to Hilton. It's going where it's going today.
How are you gonna get, how's he gonna get back there with lots in there? That's my question, I guess.
Put underground storm drainage.
So then you're gonna build it on top of the underground storm drainage.
It'll be between lots.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, all of these have to comply with the requirements that we do have for them.
I mean, I'm just telling you up front, they is a bunch of water.
Yeah.
When it comes, I mean.
Well, they do have a lot of.
Right now, it's not a problem now, because it's dry, but I mean, in the spring, when the ground gets saturated, and then it starts raining, well, it comes like, it'll get knee deep on me overnight, but I mean, it'll go down the next day because, you know, it's all going across the fields, but it won't do that when you put houses and stuff in there, and it's gotta go somewhere. I mean, that's my worst concern, and it's, I'm afraid you'll flood out. He lives 2 houses down. I mean, it's gonna flood him out.
Got it.
I got another question then. What happens if this does happen and it floods us out? What do we gotta do?
Sarah knows I'm looking at her. This becomes a legal question.
If you have any issue with the property owners, you have a private right to action, but that would not be anything that the city would be involved in, I believe. Assuming there may be city intervention in some way. I don't know. It depends. But I don't think the recourse would be against the city. It would be against the property owner.
But that is assuming that they build it exactly as designed.
Correct. As long as they meet the city standards, then they are good as far as we're concerned from a legal standpoint.
So you're telling me then I've gotta go to every one of them lots?
I'm not providing any legal advice. I'm just saying that the remedy is not through the city of Springdale.
Right, I mean, I understand that, but I've got to go to the owners of this property.
You would need to speak with private counsel about that, sir.
So then, I feel like we're going to get the shaft on the drainage. I mean, that's my only concern is the drainage.
Well, what we're being told by the professionals who are designing it, that they are designing it to take care of that situation where you're not flooded. Correct, Jason?
Have they got out there and shot it, took a transit and shot the property?
Yes, sir.
So you know exactly how that water's going to run? Yep. Okay. I'm good with that.
And we have to take the word of the design professionals that have designed this, that it's going to meet the standard that it's supposed to, yes.
And if you got anything to send me, send it to my address. Not the one across the road. Okay. I don't know who sent it to me, but somebody else got it beside me. It's 4758.
Any other questions or comments from the commission?
Hilton?
I think we had a call for the vote by Mr. Covert.
Okay.
This is a motion to approve subject to staff comments.
Motion subject to staff comments.
Second.
Second by Mr. Powell.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley,
Yes.
Benado,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
Mueller.
Yes.
Preliminary plats passes 9-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next section, large-scale developments. First large-scale, 18-23, Taco Bell, 1728 East Robinson. Presented by Way Engineers. Y. My apology.
Oh, that's okay. I'm Bill Terry with Y Engineers. Here for the Taco Bell on 1728 East Robinson. It's a 2,300 square foot building with 45 seats, and it's open for discussions.
Staff comments?
Truncated domes are required as per ADA requirements. Show detail of truncated domes. You will have areas where ADA ramps lead to vehicle traffic and will be required to have truncated domes. Screening fences required in accordance with Chapter 56. Show trees associated with screening. Interior parking area landscaping is required in accordance with Chapter 56. Show the total area of the parking lot, the percentage of landscaping required, and the percentage of landscaping provided. Include a drawing that identifies all areas included in the calculations. Show the irrigation system or location of host bibs on the actual plans. We have our standard comments for utilities and our standard comments about underground utilities. Please landscape around the dumpster. There are some administrative issues that need to be addressed on the stormwater drainage plan. Some developments within the city of Springdale may require additional state or federal permits and not administered by the city of Springdale, to be granted prior to approval of the project. I think this one needs a HTD permit for driveway access, because it's
Got it.
on, okay, that you need those. The rest of them are just standard comments as far as that's concerned.
Okay. And no waivers or variances or anything on this, so.
No waivers or variances.
Okay.
We're making progress, guys.
Yeah,
We're
a
getting
lot. None of these on these, it's
Yes.
amazing, so. Any questions or comments from the audience? To the commission?
Make a motion to approve, subject to staff comments.
Motion by Ms. Haney.
Second.
Second by Mr. Powell.
Parsley?
Yes.
Panado?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Compton?
Yes.
Covert?
Yes.
Haney?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Large scale passes 9-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, L 18-25, Highlands Oncology, west side of Don Tyson Interchange, presented by ESI.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason Apple with ESI. Here representing this project. This is going at the near the intersection of 56th Street and Don Tyson. We're in the process of building a new street to this site. And I'll answer any questions.
Staff comments?
What size is the building? 120,000?
122,000.
122,000 square feet.
122,000 square feet, 6 stories?
6, I believe.
6 stories. This is a great addition to the city of Springdale.
5, sorry. 5 stories.
5 stories, yeah, that's what I thought, okay. Frontage landscaping is required in accordance with chapter 56. Lot 4 extends around the curve. I think we're missing a little bit frontage
We
landscaping.
basically just have a street-like connection over there. You just want us to wrap, it's not parking per se.
We'll
so-
talk about that,
Okay.
okay? Show irrigation system or location of hose bibs or plans. Standard comments about utility companies and other departments. Underground utilities, you're aware of those. The internal pedestrian walkways must be distinguishable from driving surfaces through the use of low-maintenance surface materials such as pavers, bricks, or scored concrete. You show retaining wall detail by others without any reference to who that is going to be completed by. We need to make sure we know who that's gonna happen, who that retaining wall is gonna be done by others, and that's it.
Any questions or comments from the audience? To the commission?
Motion to approve, subject to staff comment.
Motion by Mr. Powell, second by Mrs. Haney.
Panado?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Compton?
Yes.
Covert?
Yes.
Haney?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Parsley?
Yes. Large scale passes 9-0. Thank you so much. Next item, L 18-26, BNSF Phase 2, northwest corner of Watkins and 48th Street, presented by ESI.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason Apple with ESI. This is the Phase 2 of the BNSF location. It's at the northwest corner of Watkins and 48th Street. This building's approximately 27,300 square feet. It's going to look similar to their current facility, slightly different in some aspects, but majority overall tilt-up concrete panel building. So I'll answer any other questions.
Staff comments?
You must show a 12-foot by 30-foot loading space for every 20,000 square feet or fraction thereof of commercial building. It's greater than 5,000 square feet. Please clarify if the loading area is designated on the site plan. Show the irrigation system or location of hose bibs. Standard comments about utilities and other department comments has to be addressed. Standard comments about underground utilities. There's a conflict between the elevation and site plan in regard to the door on the north side of the building. Elevations show a full sidewalk, and the site plan reflects a concrete landing or landing pad. Internal pedestrian walkways must be distinguishable from driving surfaces through the use of low-maintenance surface materials such as materials such as pavers, bricks, or scored concrete. You need a unified lighting plan. The only other standard stormwater issues addressed, the return comments from the engineer indicate that lights will be included in the construction plans. The large-scale development plans are considered those plans. The right-of-way, street illumination, lighting is required for final approval of large-scale development plan unless otherwise waived.
We'll provide lighting.
Any questions or comments from the audience? It's to the commission.
Motion to approve, subject to staff comments.
Motion by Mr. Covert,
Second.
second by Mr. Powell.
Powell,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
Haney,
Recuse.
Mueller,
Yes.
Yes.
Parker, Parsley,
Yes.
Panado.
Yes.
Large scale passes 8 and 1 recuse. Yeah. Next large scale, 18-27 Eagle Carport, southwest corner of Randall Wabi and Arkansas Missouri Railroads, presented by ESI.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason Apple with ESI. So we're basically trying to get this project going. They're wanting to do some metal buildings behind the current facility that's there today, on Randall Wabi, just west of the train tracks, kind of catty corner across from Cargill. I think right now it's a 21,000 square foot building. They're a metal building company, carport company. So it's an indoor storage area, loading area for them, to provide paved access into that area. So I'll answer the questions.
Staff comments?
Okay, what's the existing building being used for?
I'm not sure. I assume it's the same facility with the Eagle Carport properties.
And
not been in
are
there to
they
know.
intending to store anything outside? You
I think,
said
that,
no
I, think
outside
that's, I
storage.
think that's what this is for. It's for their storage. The building.
Okay, the building that they're adding, correct,
Yes.
is what they're gonna store all of their carports in, and there's nothing to be stored outside,
Not to my knowledge.
because you don't have any designated outside storage areas. Okay. Is there not a cell tower on this piece of property that has been recently installed?
It's back in the southwest corner.
And it has an access easement that gets to it?
I don't know if we could find that access easement, but yes, I mean, there's a gravel driveway that's to that, and we're gonna maintain that access.
And you're gonna indicate it on the plat so we know where
Yes.
it is, because you can't build across an access easement. Please show the irrigation system or location of hose bibs on the plans. Standard comment about, all comments from utility companies and other city departments must be addressed. Underground utilities, same as the other comments. You can't construct anything across an access easement or a drainage easement, and that's the comment about the, cell tower, and fences can't be across either of those. This project is tied to a lot split, and the lot split must be approved prior to the project being approved. Okay?
Yes.
Any questions or comments from the audience? It's to the commission.
To approve, subject to staff comments.
By Mr. Powell,
Second.
second by Mr. Covert.
Excuse me, Tyler,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley,
Yes.
Panado,
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Large scale passes 9-0.
Thank you.
Next section, waivers, W 18-17, Ricky Allen Sharp Trust, 2060 East Ivy Lane, waiver sidewalk requirement, presented by Jim Crouch.
Good evening. I'm Jim Crouch. I represent the owner of this property, the Sharp Trust. We've been here before. We were here this summer to request that this land be rezoned to agricultural. That was not successful. The property is, it has a house on it, as you can see from the overhead. And the city requirements require that it be, there be a sidewalk in front of it for the length of it. So we're asking that that be waived. This property, as you can see, is on the north side of Ivy Lane, and if you go from 265 east on Ivy Lane, there is no sidewalk on the north side. There is a sidewalk on the south side as part of the Enclave subdivision. And I've got some photographs I'll pass out. There's a significant tree line as you get past Mr. or the Sharp's house on that north side, and any sidewalk would require that tree line be taken out. There's not, I don't believe there's curb and gutter there. A bit of a ditch there, and although it doesn't really show on this, but you see the green trees on the east side of the Sharp property. That's a flood zone, and I've got a map of it. Substantial part of that, substantial part of Mr. Sharp's, the Sharp Trust property, is in the floodway. And so if he was required to build a sidewalk, it would, at some point, it would be underwater. And about the east line is also a little creek or a waterway that comes to Ivy Lane. So we think this would be unnecessary to have a sidewalk there, and we're asking that you waive it.
I'll ask, but I know it is from you guys on the staff comments.
The same answer. You know, we don't recommend waiver of sidewalks. I do want to remind you that the school district bought the corner. They will be required to build sidewalks on their side, so there would be sidewalks that leads up to the property line.
Any questions or comments from the audience? It's to the commission.
I just want to say, I mean, that you're going to have a school property right next door, and potentially people in the subdivision across the street that will cross over and need a sidewalk to get to the school. They'll be within walking distance.
Well, and I certainly understand that's something you have to consider, but again, there's you may require that the school district take that tree line out, but there's a significant tree line on the school's property on not only Ivy Lane, but also as you go down George Anderson. And I don't know how much sidewalk you'll require.
Did he take all the trees out on his property? Because from his fence line, there's no, so for his area, there's no issue.
There are no trees where his house is, that's correct.
Okay.
But again, if you build a sidewalk down to the creek, it's going to be underwater. And it'll be underwater as you go further east from the creek to George Anderson, because that's floodway too. I suspect, but I don't know, that the configuration, the footprint of the school would be more up toward Don Tyson Boulevard. You know, I mean, I hate to second guess the people or think for the people in that subdivision, but there's not going to be any more subdivisions out there, I don't think, because you've got agricultural property across the street, big estates. That's not going to be developed into subdivisions. So it's a fairly far piece to walk from the Enclave down that road to get to the school property. So I don't think that those people would be letting their children walk that way. Also, by the way, I thought I was supposed to request a variance. Patsy's office corrected me and said, no, it's a waiver. So I gave notice to all the people that we had to give notice to in the rezoning, which would be the people adjacent to the property in the Enclave, and then the people across Don Tyson Parkway.
There is an option of a bill of assurance. If you think that that's not ever going to take place, and then if the school does put in a sidewalk, the funds will be there to put, or a payment in lieu of, so that
Does a bill of assurance require a deposit, or is that just a promise that if it's ever required, they'll
It's
build it?
just a lien that's actually put on the property that if a project is undertaken, the city can call it. You have to pay whatever the cost is at the time. Payment in lieu of allows you to pay whatever the cost is today, and you don't have to worry about it again.
I don't know that anyone on this plan commission was there when this happened, and Pat, well, except Patsy was around, but there's property further west on Ivy Lane that owner too was required to build a sidewalk. I'm not sure why he didn't build it. He says, and Patsy, I can't remember his name, but he said he put up a deposit, and then when the city didn't build it, he got the money back, but it may have been waived.
Well, at one time, we had a provision that once those payment in lieu were made, if the city didn't take the project within a certain amount of time, the money could be refunded. That has been changed. That doesn't exist anymore.
Well, I
Once you
understand.
make that deposit, it's there and it stays until the city uses it. And we're tracking several of them all over the
But
city.
my point is, and I agree, that's what your ordinance now says, but my point is, he was supposed to build a sidewalk and didn't.
Right, and he opted to make a payment in lieu of, and then ask for the money back when that provision was still in existence.
Right.
Yeah.
Still, I don't think you're ever gonna see a sidewalk anywhere west of this property.
So is there any major street improvements for Ivy or George Anderson?
Today, there's not. With the school district building a new facility out there, we really haven't addressed the impact and what's gonna have to happen with the school going in there.
That could very well change things on that. I mean,
It will change the
Yeah.
traffic patterns in that area, whether Ivy Lane becomes the one that's impacted more than George Anderson. I can't answer that for you yet, because we haven't seen how they're laying it out, how they're accessing it, how they expect their buses to come in and out. We haven't seen any of that stuff yet, so I can't tell you that yet.
any other questions or comments on that from the planning department? Okay. Any questions or comments from the audience to the commission on here? And we've given a option as far as bill of assurance, which would be a lien against the property. Is that an option?
Well, would that option not be available to us regardless? Or do
It'll
we have
be
to
a-
choose
it-
that tonight?
That option would still be available when you get to council meeting, yes, because this has to go to council. The planning commission would make a recommendation of whether they are recommending it be waived, payment in lieu of, or bill of assurance, and then the council makes the final decision.
Well,
Now, if you agree to payment in lieu of or bill of assurance, it doesn't have to go to council tonight.
so that, I'm sorry, thanks for the clarification, but are you saying that this board, this commission has to vote on whether to allow a bill of assurance? Or is that just an option we have?
We could vote as is, as far as the waiver. Or you have the option to change that to where what you're asking for is a bill of assurance.
To modify it now, okay.
Right, you can ask for that modification. Now, if we vote on it as is, as far as a waiver, and regardless of whether it passes or fails, it still goes to the city council.
Right.
And the city council would either, if we approved it, then they would either agree or disagree with our waiver, or if we deny this, they could overturn that. Or they could come to you as far as bill of assurance as well.
But if you're willing to make a payment in lieu of or a bill of assurance, it doesn't have to go to council.
Don't have to
It
go.
goes to council because they are the only group that can actually commit future funds to do the work, and that's why it has to go to council if it's completely waived.
May I have a moment?
Do you want us to come back on it? Okay, I can go to the next item on here if you want me to, and then. That's all right.
We would request that you vote on it.
Okay. Be a recommendation?
Recommendation to move forward. Staff comments.
Recommendation 5.
With,
Mr. Covert?
to recommend the waiver?
Recommend the waiver. Yes, ma'am.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Powell.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
No.
Haney,
No.
Mueller,
No.
Uh,
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley,
No.
Panado,
No.
Powell,
Yes.
Tyler.
No.
This does not pass. 6-3.
So the recommendation to the council will be not to grant the waiver.
Okay,
You'll have to work with them on to whether it's,
so we have to file an appeal to get
No,
on the agenda?
you don't have to file the appeal. It automatically goes to council on the 28th. And the recommendation from the council would be, from the planning commission is not to waive it.
Right.
And that gives the two other options that the council will have to do with.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next item, W 18-18, David Leach, 1202 South Pleasant, waiver sidewalk requirement presented by David Leach.
Hello. My name is David Leach. I own the property at 1202 Christian Avenue. I'm currently developing that property, and I plan on doing the sidewalk requirements on the Christian side, but I wanted to ask for a waiver on the Pleasant side because my property pins are on the curb. So I technically have nowhere to put my sidewalk there, so.
Staff comments?
Okay, your property pins are on the edge of the right-of-way?
They're actually on the curb of the street on 1202. Yes, they're about 2 to 3 inches from the curb.
Okay, so it would take a sidewalk, an easement, in order to put a sidewalk on that side? Okay. And we have done sidewalk easements. Staff would not recommend waiver of this sidewalk. We have a lot of people that walk to and from Elmdale School. We've looked at Safe Routes to School program to try to get sidewalks in this area, and so staff would not recommend a waiver of sidewalks in this case either.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the audience? Let's do the commission.
Motion to approve with staff comments.
Motion by Mr. Covert,
Second.
second by Mr. Powell.
Okay, that's to deny the waiver.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. To deny the waiver?
Yes, ma'am.
Covert,
No.
No,
Wait a minute,
your motion was.
I am motioning to deny the waiver. That is correct.
Yes. So you.
So that would be a yes vote for this.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
so it's a yes vote
Correct.
to say no.
Yeah,
That's right.
This is where it gets confusing, is you're voting yes to say no. Okay, keep
Okay.
that in mind.
Haney,
yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley,
Yes.
Panado,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Compton.
Motion passes 9-0 to
So we'll
deny
go
the
to
waiver.
council on the 28th with a recommendation not to waive
Okay.
the sidewalk.
So then I have to ask for a requirement for an easement there then?
Well, we need to figure out how we could get a sidewalk in there, so you may want to come by the office between
Yeah,
now and
I've-
council
I've-
meeting
I've-
to.
I've-
So there would take an easement. Is there physically enough room that you could do a sidewalk easement through there?
Yeah, pretty close.
If it's put at the back of the curb rather than creating a green space, could it be done that way? Yeah. Okay. Well, we need to sit down and talk about this one.
Okay.
Okay, come see me and we'll see what we can work out.
Okay. All right,
It goes
thank
to
you.
council on the 28th.
Okay, thank you.
Next item, W 18-20, Dwayne Drummond, 2574 North 40th Street, waiver sidewalk requirement presented by Dwayne Drummond.
Good evening, council. I'm Clinton Bell. Mr. Drummonds would like to ask for the waiver based off the idea of the improvements that are happening to 40th Street. He's within 30 to 60 days of occupancy, and the city's contacted him as well as engineering, and they've drawn some survey lines that show if he pours where it's required now, it'll be moved very soon. Not only that, the neighbor to the north doesn't have a sidewalk and does have a waiver. I don't know the terms for that waiver, but the neighbor to the south is poured incorrectly. If he pours now, those sidewalks won't line up. I don't think he's looking to not pour the sidewalks as much as maybe to wait in lieu of the improvements to 40th Street.
And that is under design. We have an engineer under design, or under contract to do the design work for this improvement of 40th Street, so we can work through that. Does he need to dedicate some additional right-of-way in order for the sidewalk to go through there, do you know?
I don't believe so.
So it is an ongoing project.
So is this really a waiver, or is this a bill of
Well,
service?
he needs to be able to get his C of O to move in, because right now he's required to build the sidewalk.
Right.
You could recommend that he make his payment in lieu of, and then that goes into that program, or you can send it to council and let them decide what they want to do with it. At this point, it seems silly to require him to put the sidewalk in at the location where he would normally put it in until we know the design. So basically, we're waiving it because of that, and then the council would determine whether they want to just waive it completely or whether or not they want to require him to do payment in lieu of.
But
So it's really up to the client, though, if he wants to do that. We're gonna vote on whatever the client wants, if he wants to do payment in lieu of, or just go off the waiver.
Well,
But with payment in lieu of, instead of the rest of the citizens picking up the dollar amount for it, that money could go, I mean, we're already short financially on other streets in the community, so it would be beneficial to have him pay his fair share. And
that
it
can
would
be
be
your
nice
recommendation
that
to
he does,
council.
and it would be nice if he would pay that, but don't put it in so that it doesn't get torn out, right?
I believe that would be acceptable. He believes he would pay and have it poured, and then it would be torn up and moved by the city a few months later.
okay, so he's agreeable to do payment in lieu of?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then if that's the case, and you accept that, then we'll move on and work with him to get the amount, and he will post that amount with the city, and he can get a C of O, and we're ready to go. Okay, so then the motion would be to accept payment in lieu of improvements for the sidewalk.
Motion to accept payment in lieu of sent to the city council for approval.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Powell, second by Mr. Covert.
Haney?
Yes, and we appreciate that he's willing to pay his share.
This is the perfect scenario that
Exactly.
we've been talking about, so.
Mueller?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Parsley?
Yes.
Nato?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Compton?
Yes.
Covert?
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
And if he's willing to make payment in lieu of, we don't have to go to council. If we can just get together on the amount, and that can be deposited with the city, he can get his C of O. How close is he to getting his C of O?
Very close. Who does he need to
Okay.
get with?
Just contact engineering tomorrow.
Okay.
And determine what the footage is and the going cost for sidewalks, and that way, we'll work it out that way.
All right, will do.
Okay,
Thank you,
thank you.
council.
Planning Director report.
Okay, work session set for August the 21st at 5:30. We really need to have Sarah to join us for that work session to give some legal updates on some issues you all need to be aware of. As we just talked about, we need to talk about the food trucks and how we're going to address those in the city of Springdale. And then hopefully by then I will have some information on different lot sizes for residential that we discussed at the last work session and some of the modifications that we talked about the residential standards. So is the 21st going to work for everybody? That's our standard. School's back in session. We're back to normal, right?
That's right.
Isn't that what that's called?
Find normal on that, but,
Whatever normal is. So that's really all I have.
okay. Any other comments on the commission? All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you.